Right now, in America, 25 million adults under 35 are living with their parents. That's 1 in 3. A record. And I know what you're already picturing. The guy in the basement. Gaming headset. His mom does his laundry. He's 29 and he's figuring it out. So here's the number that ruins that picture. 70% of the 25 to 34-year-olds living at home have jobs. 70%. They're employed, they go to work, and they come home to their childhood bedroom. That number has barely moved in 25 years. So whatever's happening here, it isn't laziness. The laziness story doesn't survive contact with the data, which leaves a much more interesting question. What is it? We've got a word for this. Man-child. Everyone knows what it means. You've probably called someone it. You may have been called it. And here's the first thing worth knowing. It isn't a real diagnosis. It's not in the DSM. It's never been in the DSM. The closest thing to an official version is Peter Pan syndrome, which came from a pop psychology book by a therapist named Dan Kiley in 1983. It sold well. It entered the language. It was never a clinical condition, and it isn't one now. So we're dealing with an insult that got promoted to a diagnosis, and I think that's exactly why the conversation around it is so useless. When you call something a character flaw, you've closed the case before you've opened it. I want to actually open it. Because there is real psychology here. It's just not the psychology people assume. Let's define what we're talking about. Because man-child gets thrown at very different things. It's not living at home. Half the world lives in multi-generational households, and always has. In plenty of cultures, it's the default, and nobody thinks twice. It's not being unemployed either. We just established most of these people work. What people actually mean when they use the term is something narrower. An adult who has outsourced the difficult parts of adulthood to someone else. Decisions, consequences, logistics, emotional labor. Someone is doing those things for them, and they've stopped noticing. That's the pattern. Not location, not income. Delegation of the hard parts. And it has a real cost, which is worth naming, honestly. Every difficult thing you do yourself teaches you that you can do difficult things. That's not a motivational slogan. That's how self-efficacy is built through evidence. You handle something, you file away proof that you're a person who handles things. If someone else keeps handling it, you never collect the proof. So the cost isn't that you're comfortable, it's that you stay uncertain about your own capability indefinitely. And that uncertainty is genuinely unpleasant to live inside, which is something the people mocking this rarely consider. So where does this pattern come from? 4 things, and they stack. 1. Overprotective parenting. You've heard the term helicopter parenting. The research on it is reasonably consistent. Young adults who report high levels of parental overinvolvement tend to score lower on self-efficacy and higher on anxiety and depression. And the mechanism makes sense. Every time a parent steps in to solve something, the message underneath the help is, I don't think you can handle this. Do that 10,000 times and the person believes it. Not consciously. They just develop a quiet sense that the world is slightly too much for them. Important caveat, and I'll keep making these. This research is correlational. It's possible that anxious kids draw more parental intervention rather than the intervention creating the anxiety. It probably runs both directions. But the pattern is real, and it's been found repeatedly. 2. Fear of failure, and specifically, avoidance. Here's what makes avoidance so difficult to escape. Avoiding something you're afraid of works. immediately the anxiety drops the second you decide not to do it. That's a reward, delivered instantly, every single time. So the brain learns, not trying feels good. And the cost is invisible, because you never see the thing that didn't happen. You don't see the job you didn't apply for. You just feel fine on the couch. This is why just try is such useless advice. You're asking someone to trade guaranteed immediate relief for possible delayed benefit, and human beings are very bad at that trade. 3. The economics, and this is the part everyone skips. I said 70% of these people have jobs. So let's look at what a job buys now. Median home price in the US last year was around $430,000, up roughly 34% from 2019. Median rent about $1,670 a month, up 18% over the same period. Add student debt, which is more widespread and larger than it was for the previous generation. Now, put yourself there. You're 27. You have a job. You cannot afford to live alone in the city where that job is. Is that arrested development, or is that arithmetic? I want to be careful in both directions here, because both stories get oversold. The economic conditions are real, and they explain a large part of this trend. They do not explain the specific person who has money and still can't book his own dentist appointment. Both things are true. One is structural, one is psychological, and the mistake almost everyone makes is picking a side and using it to explain all of it. 4. Adulthood itself got longer. In 2000, a psychologist named Jeffrey Arnett proposed something that's now widely accepted in developmental psychology. There's a life stage between adolescence and full adulthood that didn't meaningfully exist before. He called it emerging adulthood, roughly 18 to 29. Marriage later. Children later. Career stability later. Not because of moral decline, because education takes longer and the economy restructured. So some of what gets mocked as immaturity is a real developmental period that our vocabulary hasn't caught up with. We're using our grandparents' timeline to grade a completely different game. Now here's the turn, and it's the reason I wanted to make this. Everyone frames the solution as responsibility. Grow up. Take responsibility. Stop making excuses. I think that's aimed at the wrong target, and I think there's a body of research that shows why. Self-determination theory, developed by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan over several decades, holds that people have 3 basic psychological needs: autonomy, the sense that your actions originate from you; competence, the sense that you're effective; and relatedness, genuine connection with others. Look at that pattern we described again. The delegation. Someone else making the calls, the decisions, the arrangements. That's not a responsibility deficit. That's an autonomy deficit. And the difference matters enormously because it changes what actually works. Telling someone to take responsibility is telling them to want something different. That almost never works, and it usually just adds shame on top of the original problem. Restoring autonomy is different. It's evidence-based, and it's small. You take back one thing, one decision that was being made for you. You make it badly if necessary, and you survive it. That's it. That's the mechanism, not motivation evidence. You're not trying to feel capable. You're trying to accumulate proof, one item at a time, because that's the only way self-efficacy has ever been built. The person who books their own appointment isn't cured. They've collected one data point. 20 of those and something genuinely shifts. And notice this doesn't require moving out. It doesn't require money. It's available to someone still in their childhood bedroom this afternoon. So let's pull it together. The man-child isn't a diagnosis. It never was. It's an insult wearing a lab coat. Underneath it, there are 4 real things: parenting that overhelped, avoidance that pays out immediately, an economy that made the first steps toward independence genuinely expensive, and a developmental stage that got longer while our language stayed the same. And what's actually missing usually isn't willingness. It's evidence, proof, accumulated over time, that you can handle difficult things which you only get by handling difficult things. Which means the fix isn't a lecture, it's a list. Small, specific, slightly uncomfortable, done by you. I'll say the honest part too, as I always try to. Most of what I've cited here is correlational. We can't run the experiment where we randomly assign people different parents and different housing markets. Take this seriously, don't take it as physics. But I'd offer one reframe. If you know someone in this pattern, or you're in it, the least useful thing anyone can do is call it a character flaw. It hasn't worked yet. It's been tried on 25 million people. The useful thing is much smaller and much less satisfying. Stop doing one thing for them. Let them do it badly. That's how anyone ever learned they could. I want to hear from you on this one, because I know the comments will split. If you've lived this, either as the person at home or the parent who kept stepping in, tell me what actually shifted it. What was the first thing you took back? I read these. And if you want more of this, where I go to the actual research instead of repeating what everyone else is saying, subscribe. Next one's already in progress. See you then.